The New York Football Giants beat the undefeated Chargers. That's right. It took them till week 4, but they did it. They got a win. And my favorite thing about this whole game is this, that even though the Giants made mistakes and, they got bad penalties and they gave up big explosive plays, they still made stops when it mattered and they played complimentary football. That is how you win football games. That is how you do it. And it's what they've been lacking from weeks 1 to week 3. And they also have been lacking Andrew Thomas, because the only thing I was thinking about on my 2-hour ride home from MetLife was, could you imagine if Andrew Thomas was out there week 1? Would they still have struggled in the red zone? Yes. Would the defense have struggled? Yes. Would they have moved the ball down the field more? Would they have gotten into the red zone more often? Would they have had more success because the offensive line was so bad week 1? Also probably yes. There's nothing we can do about it now, but these are the things that I'm thinking when I'm in the car for 2 hours on the way home. But I am so happy for this football team. And I know there was a lot of stuff that was bad. That's a tomorrow problem. Today, we are talking about the highlights and the good things. Because like I said, this team has done a lot. There were a lot of missed opportunities in this game. There were some bad penalties. There were other interceptions that could have been caught. There were balls that should have been caught from the wide receivers. All sorts of things. Sacks that shouldn't have been taken. But they still found a way to win. The defense made a stop when it mattered. Brian Burns, oh my God. The team as a whole, we're going to get to the defense. Let's talk about the offense first, because this is actually kind of crazy. Jackson Dart only had 112 passing yards. That's insane. And they still ended up winning this game. And what's crazy too is the rush yards were, let me pull this up because I want to make sure I got it right, but I'm pretty sure it was 161. So that means they had less than 300 yards of offense and they still won. This is a 3-0 Chargers team that has the number 1 red zone defense, that has top 10 defense in everything, and kind of shows with these stats, right? They ended up with 161 rushing yards and 119 receiving yards. Under 300 yards of total offense. And, Jackson Dart also contributed to that. But it's amazing that they struggled in the red zone again, that they, Dart took a couple sacks he shouldn't have taken. Receivers didn't catch balls. They got, silly penalties, all sorts of things, and they closed out the game. That is how you do it. And as I was listening to some of the players in their post games, Brian Burns kind of reiterated that they figured out how to play complementary football and they made a stop when it mattered. And something else he said that I thought was really interesting, and we'll get more into this when we talk about the defense. I want to talk about the offense more, but just the way that a lot of their post games talked about how they feel like they trust each other and they have, become really close, and Dart has brought this different type of energy to the team. And they also all said the same thing, which is what we're going to talk about right now. The guy needs to get down on the damn ground, needs to get on the ground. And in the post game, I thought it was very, very respectable that he said, I know this was a tough week for Russell Wilson, and I give him a lot of credit because I know this was a challenging week, and he came out here and was professional about it, and he was extremely helpful to basically anything that I needed this week getting ready for the game. So I really like that he went out of his way to say that about Russell Wilson. I think that shows respect for your elders, but also just the dynamic that is in the locker room, that, these guys are putting the team first, and I think this was a really good example of it. But it also shows a lot of leadership from Jackson Dart, and I really like that, hearing it from a young guy. But the thing that Dart said was he was upset that the sidelines called him off to go into the tent to get concussion checked, because he's like, I don't miss it. I don't like missing plays, and I want to be on the field. My guy, no one wants you missing plays, but get your ass on the ground, sir. You know how to slide or go out of bounds. I appreciate that he's tough. We all love this about him. It's why we all love Scat. It's why we respected Daniel Jones, right? He was willing to take hits that as a quarterback, sometimes you should not take, because you have to protect yourself first and live to see another down. And he just was not having it. And look, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm gonna hope that it was, first game. I will say the energy and the crowd at MetLife was night and day different than what it was last week against the Chiefs. Every single person was up on third down. I watched every single snap when they were driving towards the red zone, the offense, standing, because everyone else in front of me was standing. They gave us rally towels. Our fans were so loud, and this was the first time that I was like, wow, maybe we do actually have an advantage. Maybe we have a home field advantage in this shit ass stadium. Maybe, who knows? The crowd was so loud that Justin Herbert and the offense got back-to-back false starts on one drive. So I think that alone also was exciting, right? And the guys talked about it afterwards. Jermaine Illuminor said the crowd was electric today. There was a really good energy there. And look, we can all say like whether it matters or not, but when the other team is getting false starts because they can't hear the communication, okay, maybe there's a little bit of an advantage, a little bit. But anyway, there were a lot of things that I saw from Jackson Dart that I liked. He was very much calm, cool, collected. He was good under pressure. He made smart decisions with the ball. He did try to fit in some tight windows, but he made good decisions, did not turn the ball over. On the one snap that was botched that Andrew Thomas ended up getting, thank God, but no turnovers or anything like that. So I think he did a really good job of making decisions. He did a decent job of spreading the ball around, obviously with Neighbors, which I'm so devastated about Neighbors. We're going to talk about him later. But, with him being out now, especially, you're going to have to spread the ball around. But I thought he did a great job. He got through his reads very well. Testament to the offensive line that they gave him time to do that. The throw to Theo in the red zone that Theo ended up getting the touchdown from, he said that's something that they talked about all week, that if that lane was open to look back at each other and he was going to go, and Dart was going to go to Theo with it. So, this communication, it's unfortunately taken a couple weeks to get there, and I hope that it continues, but I think it's reassuring to feel like there's some cohesion going on both sides of the ball, but they're also, the three of them combined, also special teams, played complementary football. That's how you win games. With that being said, we have to talk about the edge rushers, because I'm afraid to say this out loud, truly. Dare I say that Shane Bowen might have figured it out? Because in Brian Burns' post-game too, he said that when they gave up the 54-yard run to Omarion Hampton, that the call, I think Shane Bowen was getting ready to call something else, and Brian Burns said to him, trust me, let us go after Herbert. We're going to get to him. And they got to him. They did it. And, and Burns just said, I think we're really starting to get to that point where the coach really trusted me, and it ended up being the right decision. I had his back on that play and knew we were capable of doing it, and he did it. And it makes me wonder if maybe there's been some trust issues there from Bowen. I mean, from what I've seen, I think it's not really on the players. I think part of it is for sure. But when it comes to the rushing, you have to give them the opportunity to actually rush after the quarterback. So I don't know, but I got the census that there was some communication issues that were happening over the first couple of weeks that were leading to trust issues, and they're finally getting there. So very reassuring. Listen to this stat. And of course it disappeared because this stupid app. Okay, our edge... Are you ready for this? Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau combined for 20 pressures. Carter had 5 quarterback hits, Burns 4 quarterback hits and a sack, Thibodeau 3 quarterback hits and a sack. And the biggest thing about this game too was that having Darius Muasau back made a big difference in the linebacker capability, which means that they didn't have to put Abdul Carter in as middle linebacker. And I said that that's what you should do, and I'm not exactly an expert, but if I was able to figure that out, then I'm glad Shane Bowen could too. Good job. He used Abdul Carter more as an edge rusher in this game, and look what happens. The stats, the game-wrecking ability is now, we saw it, and it helped the Giants win a football game. So Shane Bowen, can you do that more often, please? Please? So a really, really great game from those 3 guys. And my favorite was, we talked about last week how Herbert and Thibodeau played together for 1 year at Oregon. And, Thibodeau has been playing lights out football the last couple weeks. And I was like, man, I think Kayvon's going to get a sack on him. And I think that Kayvon's going to win that battle. And how do you like that? Not only did he do that, both him and Burns were asked after the game, on the third down with the last 2 minutes of the game where Burns sacked Herbert. Herbert got up and threw the ball on the ground, which is not something that you see from Herbert. He's normally like calm, cool, collected, but he was frustrated. And both of those guys were asked in their post games, what do you think about the quarterback being frustrated? And Thibodeau laughed and kind of like made a joke out of it and was like, I know Herbert, like he doesn't really show that type of emotion. So the fact that we were getting to him, kind of meant a lot. And then Burns was like, I'm not going to answer that question, but I'm sure you can imagine that it feels good. And I was like, I love these two. God, I love them. So overall, a good showing from the defense. Like I said, definitely some issues there, some things that need to be cleaned up, but they gave up a couple explosive plays, but they made stops when it mattered. And, we've heard so much about Shane Bowen with this prevent defense and blah, blah, blah. And, what he said, and I think what the type of Giants outside of maybe Wink that they have played over the years is the bend, don't break. This is the example of the bend, don't break defense, where, okay, you give up a big play here and there. In the grand scheme of things, they did not give up a ton of big plays. The Chargers and the wide receivers, like they were not running and passing all over us. They had 152 rushing yards and 203 passing yards. So still overall over 300 yards of offense, but the defense was able to get to the quarterback, to get him to make bad decisions. And on top of that, they were able to get the stops when it mattered. That is the bend, don't break blueprint. Giants defense, do it again, forever. That is how you play football if you're not going to play Winks type of football. We got to talk about Dexter Lawrence. I have been to a lot of football games at MetLife, and in the last 4 years, they've been pretty awful for most of the games that I've been at. And there's been a couple good plays. That Dexter Lawrence interception might go down as the best play that I have ever seen at MetLife Stadium. I was on the opposite end zone as they were heading in the other direction, like Herbert was coming towards us, right? And I see Dex bobbling it, and I leap out of my chair. Our whole section is like, oh my God, no way. And he catches it and starts running, and everyone's just screaming, Dexter, Dexter. And I was like, this is maybe the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen at MetLife. A 340-pound man took that ball and almost ran it for the touchdown. And all of their post game too was like, man, we thought Dexter had the touchdown. We thought he was going to get it. It was so close. And Dable's like, of course I hoped it was going to be a touchdown. Didn't we all? But him getting tackled also by Justin Herbert is hysterical. The whole thing is comical. But, I was laughing to myself thinking like last week when Dexter had that tip, or no, it was the Cowboys game, when he had that tip pass, and if he caught it, it would have ended the game right there. I'm like, I wonder if Dexter was working on that. And maybe he did, but now his first career interception, he's done it. Maybe he can do it again. The other interception that I want to talk about is Drew Phillips, because we have heard all summer about this treasure chest and the interceptions, and everyone was getting interceptions during camp. And for the first few weeks, it was barely translating. And now Drew Phillips comes out. I think that's now his second on the season. Dexter Lawrence makes this incredible play. It's like, it does start to feel like the defense is clicking a little bit. And again, I know they have struggled a lot. I know there was a lot that went wrong in this game. But Jim Harbaugh, I always get them confused. It's Jim and Justin Herbert, and that whole football team is a damn good football team. And the fact that the Giants were able to hold them to 18 points, which is less than their average over the last 3 games, and the fact that they were able to get a win are so amazing. And I'm very, very happy for this team. But I am also like, I feel so conflicted because I'm so happy to finally have this win against a good football team. And even Brian Burns said, look, we knew when Joe Alt went out, we knew they were playing against some of their backup third string guys. That offensive line was not what it was going into this game, especially in week 1 after Slater gets injured, right? But he said there's no moral victories here. So we knew we were going against, not the star guys. We should have gotten all those reps, and we should have gotten all the pressures and the quarterback hits and the sacks. So I think part of that is confidence too. They're able to do it now. Poor Spencer Rattler next week. Anyway, I am conflicted because the Neighbors injury is so devastating. It is very highly likely that he tore his ACL and will be out for the season. And there's so many reasons to be upset about it. Something that I saw that really, like, oh my God, just broke my heart was the last time the Giants played the Chargers was, I think, in 2019 at home. And it was in week 4. And Odell Beckham Jr. tore his ACL. Maybe it wasn't 2019. Maybe it was 2017. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The last time that the Giants played the Chargers at home, it was week 4, and the exact same thing happened to Odell Beckham Jr. And it's just so devastating. And I'm begging the Giants, please go call OBJ and bring him back. But, Neighbors, I know so many of us were like, Dart is going to feed Neighbors, and this is it. I mean, we talked about this on Giants Collective. He's top 3 wide receiver in the league. He's going for the Triple Crown. Like, obviously had a tough week last week. We knew he was going to rebound this week. He was having a great game with a lot of targets and receptions before that. And it's really so devastating. So we'll see what happens this week if the Giants make any moves. Wish him a very, very quick and speedy recovery and hope that he's back for next summer. But obviously devastating to lose someone like that. The thing that also made me so sad was Malik Neighbors has dealt through an entire year of a shit football team that loss after loss after loss. And all this kid wants to do is win. And he comes out here and he plays well and he helps the offense move the ball down the field, and they finally get a win. And he ends up on the sideline or, in the I don't even know where he is, in the hospital maybe. He ends up not even getting to enjoy one of possibly the few wins that we're going to have this season, a game that under normal circumstances, the Giants never should have won. They weren't expected to win. This happens, right? They beat teams that they shouldn't have beat. I thought they had no chance going in this week, like most of us did. And, I'm so heartbroken for Malik Neighbors. So I hope that we get some better news this afternoon when the MRI comes out. And maybe it's not that bad, but it's looking like it's going that way. So really upset for him, but wish him a speedy recovery. The Giants got to win. It's great momentum for them heading into the Saints game, which we are going to talk about later this week. So make sure you subscribe for more.